All right, good evening. Welcome back to the series on reinforcement learning for Pokémon Red. Over the past couple of days, I've made a number of changes to how we're reinforcing the model's learning progress, the way it's handling exploration specifically, as we frequently ran into issues with Mount Moon and making progress through there. We started to get it to a few agents almost accidentally making it into Cerulean City, and then going into the gym. But the goal here is to give the agent more clues on how to proceed through moving in the game. Because how the current agent, or how the previous agent was selecting its movements, was completely random. It wasn't getting any reinforcement on like what is the best way to do movement. So I came up with a few solutions on how to implement that. So just to give you an idea here, I started this run about 2.5 hours ago. And they are already, it's almost at the end of the second full run through, but they're already figuring out that where the Pewter City gym is and starting to go into the gym. So right now, about a quarter of the agents have actually gone in and faced Brock. Like I said, we're at 12 million steps here. So it's only on the end of its second cycle through, and we are in the gym. Past versions, before I started making these changes, we were getting to the 100, 200 million step range before it was even getting into Pewter City, and sometimes not even that far. With it being really random before, it wasn't really figuring out the best ways to proceed through the game, even in the earlier phases. So you can see now almost all the agents are all the agents are out of the Pallet Town area. A few of them have proceeded into Pewter. You can see the majority of them are here. A few of them have actually been sent back to Vermilion because they have not found the gym. So this level 14 Squirtle here actually was fighting Brock and then lost and then got sent back here just because it had never checked in at the Pokemon Center. So it lost quite a bit of progress, but it's relearning or trying to refine the path here. So how did I make these changes, or what changes did I make to get this here? And there were 3 factors that I added to the scoring process here. You'll see them here at the end. One is what I'm going to call the Frontier Score, or I call it Frontier Reward. It's for finding new places to explore. When you're going on to a square, it looks at the surrounding squares and tells you how many have you not visited yet. The idea here is to encourage it to find new and novel locations. And if you're constantly moving, the score should stay relatively high for the maximum that you can earn here. What it's getting is it's getting about 0.2 per square. That is 0.2 per square nearby that it can move into that has not already been explored. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I do it this way. One is if it knows that there is a wall next to it, it will now only get 0.4 as the maximum. Because if you want to think about this, my paint skills here, this is the square where the agent is. There are 1, 2, 3 squares that have not been explored. It can never be 4 because this is the square that it moved in from. No matter how you want to do this, you can turn it 90 degrees. It's still the same. The agent came from the step before, so one of the 4 possible locations it can move to is out. So then it can get 0.6 for the Frontier Score. But now let's say that this one is a wall. Well, its 0.2 or its Frontier Score is now actually 0.4. And then if it's now coming up to a corner, its Frontier Score is now 0.2. And then it would move here. And let's say that it had done all of these squares already and is moving back to a location, then its Frontier Score will now be 0.0, and it will move away from that because it will want to try and find the positive score to add to what it's learning along the way. I also added I call it directional persistence. Just keep moving in the same direction. We'll give it a slight bonus along the way. What I had to make the values here really small because what ended up happening is on the runs where the rewards got too large, essentially it would keep moving around in a square or rectangle to get it the maximum amount of reward there. So what I do is I give it a very small amount every time it goes in the right direction, but then give it a very large negative reward if it didn't move or if it did not move in a way that kept it proceeding forward. Now, I do want to make a change here because what I realized quickly is that if the agent was forced to turn, it should still retain some of the reward, but not lose all of it here. So I think I took out too much here, and that's why I started to separate it out. We'll finish this in a little bit once I get through talking what these changes are. But that's number 2 in terms of the things that we added. So we have a frontier where we're able to find new locations for the agents to move into, and then a directional reward. So the more you keep moving in a direction, the larger that reward gets. I think I got a little too large here in terms of the negative values here. So we'll come back and make some adjustments to that. This is the isForcedTurn function. So this is just to determine if it's at a dead end. So if you were to move into, let's pull the map up here. Let's say you were stuck in this corner, you moved from over here to there. There's only one real valid move that does not cause you to backtrack, and that's to turn to the right here. But turning to the left and going straight are going to be not valid options. So we wanted to learn that, hey, kind of what is the proper way? And you can see some of the agents actually doing it here now, where they turn very quickly in terms of where they want to go. So they're learning better about interactions with the walls in the game, because before we're running into issues where frequently we would have the agents just sitting here in this corner and never moving off of it. You can see the one that was just here quickly moved away. So we're found ways to get rid of the bad habits by doing this. And I think it's just really leading to better results overall in terms of the agent's progression here. And we're seeing that too in terms of the time it takes. Like, so we're at 12 million steps and they're already in the first gym. The best I had ever gotten, and it was more accidental than anything else, was around the 38, 37 million step mark. We had an agent that had made it into the cerulean gym. I say accidental because what ended up happening is probably one of the best things for it is it had a Pidgey in the party that was like decently leveled. I want to say it was like level 8 or so. The war turtle that it had got knocked out in the way to here, and Pidgey basically had power leveled off of the Zubats that were in here, and it just ran from the Geodude battles, which is great in terms of being able to quickly level up Pokemon. And Pidgey is pretty strong. Same thing with War Turtle or Squirtle in terms of having a large number of attack moves that it can do over and over. So Pidgey here takes reduced damage from Leech Life from the Zubats, and I think as long as it's below level 12, it won't have Supersonic to confuse it. And so Pidgey can really rely on having Gust, which I think is 35, and Quick Attack, which is also 35 attack moves, which just gives it a lot of, like 70 attacks is a lot for a Pokemon to be able to level up. And then Pidgey has a relatively high attack and speed stat, so it tends to go first, attack first. It tends to go first and knock out the opposing Pokemon quickly. So it leads to it getting like a Pidgeotto. So the one that had made it here, it had like a level, I want to say it was 25 Pidgeotto and then a War Turtle in its party. So it blew through Misty, but then it got stuck. It couldn't figure out the best way to move because Misty's gym is kind of in the middle of the town here with no clear way, I say clear in terms of to the agent, where to go next. It's really hard for it to miss this little ladder here, essentially, to get up into Nugget Bridge. And ultimately, it ended up just kind of getting stuck in the corner, and it could not ever replicate that again. You can see with these ones kind of proceeding through, we're getting more progress here. This one has now started to be able to beat Brock regularly, and so it should be able to then continue through the trainer battles here. So the last part of this here is the revisit penalty. And when I implemented this, I did it poorly, and we'll make those changes to fix that up today. What I did was, if the coordinate had not been seen before, we're giving it no penalty, essentially a score of 0. And in the grand scheme of this, ends up being a positive for the agent in terms of how it learns, because it's not getting a negative value here. So it's seeing like a +5 bonus in its score by finding these new locations. So all of these three together end up really encouraging the agent to keep moving to new steps or new locations that had not been to before and do it quickly. So you have try and always be going in the same direction. Don't stand still in a square, else you start to get penalized. And then keep finding new locations. So don't revisit the steps that you've been into. Don't deviate much from the paths, and then move quickly off those corners, because you're going to start getting hit with the penalties. So we're starting to get more fluid movements in terms of the agents here. But when I say that I implemented this poorly, I did this time since last visit, which is I'm going to take the current stat count that we're on in terms of the training. So if you look here, for example, let's say it's this 178,175. And then the last time it had seen the step at that coordinate before now. So if I'm on this square now, and I'll bring the paint back up here, right? So let's just say we're at step 200. Sorry, I'm very bad at drawing with the mouse. Step 200, if I had seen that 100 steps ago, then I'm getting a -100 here in terms of the difference, because I'm doing -0.1 times 500 minus that score. That means that now, sorry, I guess it should be 100. So now I'm getting a -4 penalty for being in that square again. The problem is that this is a little bit backwards, because I'm getting a weaker penalty the longer it's been since I've been at that square up until that 500, when it should be the other way around. I should get a small penalty for going back to it like now. And then if I'm now kind of going in a loop frequently to that square, I should get a big penalty to disincentivize it from doing that frequently. And also, this means that at the earlier steps where it's finding a, not necessarily finding a new location, it's staying on that location for whatever reason, well, then it should slowly accumulate up, and then this should encourage it to move off that square, right? So if this is the first time, I just found this square, right? There's no penalty. Now, the next step later, it should be a penalty of -0.01, sorry. And then do that over and over again. So it's a bit backwards here in terms of the way I should have implemented this instead of the way I put it in the first time. So there's some changes here that we're going to go through to make, but I just wanted to give you an overview of what those changes did and then how it did in terms of the positive score. And you can see here, I tried to do a number of different experiments here. I had made a slight scoring change last time, and you see here revisit score started to creep down. This is when I realized that negative play pattern, because what it was doing was it was essentially going in the loops. And you'll see here, it's because this directional bonus keeps up. So it figured out that if I go in a rectangular pattern, my revisit score drops from -5 to, let's say, -1. And I'm also accumulating this directional change reward because for a long time, I'm going in the direction. So I'm increasing my score, and then I need to turn, right? And so I'm taking a very small penalty to that increasing score. And now I'm going to start going straight again, and I'm going to increase. And this revisit score has now gone from, I was at, almost -5 before, to now I'm only getting, like, depending on how big my rotation is, let's say it's 400 steps total. That means that my average revisit is actually only -1. And then I'm accumulating the directional score, which means that I can end up having a very large score. And you'll see it here, this one. I called it skating because essentially they figured out that if I make about 100 square box here, so my revisit score went to -4, then you can see here the reward score is just like a straight line up, and that's really rare. It should almost be curved off. You can see all the other numbers tend to curve off at some point when they kind of plateau. You can see here that the heal reward also doing the same thing. And the reason for that is right here in the directional score. So it's just moving in the same direction. The score is too large. The penalty is too little when it makes that turn. And so it grows basically up until the end of the run. And then it figures out, oh, I got to go find that location again where I made those big boxes. And I'm just going to keep doing that. And then I'm going to try and do that over and over again until I realized what was happening here. And some of the biggest indicators here were it stopped gaining exploration score. A very harsh drop. I thought, when I checked it on the first time, it's got 100 exploration on the first round. That's a pretty good score overall. And we should be in a good state. In the next round, it tapered off and then it dropped hard. And I was like, that's interesting. What's actually happening here? And then we went to the thing and you can see here, it didn't even bother to battle anymore. There was no incentive for it to go into the battles because you were going to lose the directional bonus the second that happened. So go into a battle, immediately run, and then continue moving. And even better, if I can find a place where there's no random encounters. So what was it doing? It was coming to this location here, running those circles. It was also doing a circle here over by Victory Road in this part. And then there was another circle here in Pewter that it had started to run, where it would go, I think it was somewhere over here, and keep going around. And you can see them kind of continuing to do that, where they're not getting enough reward for going out. They haven't figured out going out this way, and fighting that will give them the event rewards here because there's more trainers for it to battle. And so it's kind of plateaued. And then, like I said, the revisit penalty is not enough to keep them moving off those locations over and over again. They're actually seeing a decrease in that penalty. So they're like, okay, this is positive behavior. So we're unfortunately giving them the wrong reinforcement here. And that's why we need to make those changes. So let's dive into doing that. So the part here, I want to invert this penalty so that the penalty is larger the sooner that it revisits the space here. And the easiest way to do this is, instead of it just being the 500 here, it should just be basically the times 100th times the time since last visit. We have a cap here of 500. This is because if the agent were to get knocked out at a battle, we want it to go back to where it was in terms of its progression to continue gaining those frontier and exploration rewards. So in order to do that, the best way for this is to cap it off at about 500. When I had this at 100, it was too easy for it to do the skating loop, like I said. So we had an earlier iteration here. Go back. Where I realized, yeah, this is the first time that it started a skating issue. Where we'll go the revisit reward shrinking because it was only at about 100. So very, very small negative reward here. And then, like I said, you're going to get, where is it? The directional reward here now taking off. And these were very small numbers at the time. So for it to accumulate this much, you can see it's pretty much a straight line as it learns that process. And everything else flatlines during that time. So heal's gone, events rewards are gone, exploration's gone. So it's not getting the correct reinforcement. You can see here, it quickly had an agent or two get the badge from Brock on the first run through, which is great in terms of going out and exploring the map. But then it reverted to, I'm just going to try and maximize those reward scores. And so, like I said, we're reinforcing now a behavior that we don't want. And so we needed to put in ways to curtail that. So this will fix the penalty. So it'll be lesser up front and we'll get more as we get to that 500 point and then fall off. If I need to extend out that 500 point, it will, I can make adjustments to that. I think it should be fair for now in terms of what it's getting. And the other thing was this frontier bonus. So it's not doing any wild battles because it's getting its frontier reward taken away when it does so. And I think that is just the wrong way to do this. It should be the self-frontier reward. And the reason is because you now had a positive number before. You went into a battle, and now that positive was taken away. So it's essentially a negative reinforcement of behavior, and so it's going to avoid doing that as much as it can. So it accepts in trainer battles there's no running from those. So again, it accepts that it's going to have to go to 0 for that trainer battle, and you get the reward of I think 5 or 10. I think we're at 10 now. When that battle finishes, so it's kind of gaining back that boost pretty quickly and understands that that is positive for it. We'll go through the trainer battles quickly. That this should be a better way of maintaining the reward while it's in battle. The revisit penalty here is at the 0 when it's in battle. This was to encourage it that, hey, battles are actually a good thing, but it was being offset by the frontier. I'm still going to leave this one at 0 for now. If I continue to see it skipping wild battles, essentially, I'm going to come back and we will revisit the revisit penalty to see if we get there, to see if we can encourage it to still handle the wild battles here. And then, like I said, this directional reward, we do want it to decrease pretty quickly, but in a way that enforces the behavior. Because we do want it to keep moving in a direction that is positive, or that is increasing the exploration, increasing the frontier score, or at least moving the frontier score. I shouldn't always say increasing, right? Because you'll eventually hit the end of a path and you'll take a small ding to your frontier score. But to always keep it moving and then have that revisit score stay as small as possible here. So I think what I'll do is that instead of it being 5, this should be like 0.05. Honestly, this could be a positive number. And then if it was not a forced turn, essentially go to 0. I don't want to end up in a scenario where they're essentially doing that skating. So basically losing 100 times its reward for doing an unnecessary turn. And then if the agent didn't move at all, we're completely removing the reward. I'm thinking about maybe I should check here if it's a revisit and then just offer it no directional reward for doing so. So if it's in the same direction, get the reward. If it's not, and they were forced to turn, otherwise, reduce it. Yeah, I think just maybe leave it. And then here, if it's in battle, then no change is necessary to the reward. It's not gaining, it's not losing. So it's just exactly the same as before. So that should take you through. I've been trying to do a better job in terms of naming the tracking here. So that we had the revisit issue. We put in some fixes here. So I want to probably at the end of this run here, I wanted to check too when it got to the end of the run, how many of these trainers had actually beaten Brock. So we'll see here in terms of badge. exactly half had made it to Brock. So that's pretty darn good. Like I said, we're only at our second full iteration through 32 agents at 240,000 steps, about 6.5 million time steps. So you can see here that we've made it through. And like I said, just starting to run immediately, this large negative score is not what we want here. So I'm going to crush this. I'm going to then make sure we saved these changes. And we're going to go through and we're going to kick this off and see how it's progressing through the different locations. So all in all, this has been great at encouraging the agents to move. Come here, kick this off. Doesn't take very long for this version to get off and running. And we'll let this run for a little bit, and I will then get things set up so that way I can have the agents from that last run through there continue to make their progress while this trains. And then if I get up in the morning, because it's about 9 p.m. here, and they have made significant progress because they'll be training through the night, then I'll change out the agents that are running on the live stream, which I'll take off after this, with the 4 agents that are kind of displaying what it had progressed through so far. So I'm seeing significant changes here to the revisit being much smaller, which should then encourage it. I'm seeing Frontier here at a 0.4, so it is moving to new locations fairly frequently. Let's come back here. I know we're not going to be there. We're going to be back here at Pallet Town. We have a few that are already out in the grass, which is great. Usually that is the hardest part, is getting them out of Professor Oak's lab and get out and start exploring. So this is great to see out of the gate here. We will let this run, I'd say probably about 5 minutes or so here. I'm going to use this time to get the other stream more or less set up where we have the actual agent training here. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask while I'm get streamed down for about 5 minutes. The reason for that is so that way we can transition everything and kick it off on the older laptop here. Will take time for it to actually get started on the run. I do have to move over the agents themselves, or the step rewards here, to this computer as well. So that is part of the challenge for that. So if I go here, I wanted to go to this folder here. Yeah. The last ones that have not progressed as far, we were talking 100 million steps each of them, so it did quite a bit in terms of giving it enough time to run through these. We're getting about 100 million steps a day. You can see here about 1,000 frames per second across all the agents, which is great progress here. You can see the last one that I pulled out, 98 million steps, hadn't made it to even Brock. So this is the one that we just finished here. And you can see where I stopped it, kind of what the agents were up to. You can see here where Tata's trying to fight. For the most part, it's out on the maps. A couple battles. This is really early on. Remember, it just restarted, so not too surprising to see it not have a whole lot, but these are a few already up in Vermilion, which is great. We're continuing to see positive progress here in terms of the agents going up. I think this is the one that gives you a potion, which triggers a event reward. So if we look here, yeah, got a fair amount of them already getting the events here. It looks like 1 or 2 agents have already captured a Pokemon, which is great. Looks like they've all kind of maxed out that menu reward, which is pretty typical for this. So I'm not too surprised. in terms of their progress here. And so, like I said, it's been about 5 minutes. We are seeing the revisit score now be far less negative, which should encourage it to move out and revisit steps less frequently than before. Even less frequently than before, where now it's almost kind of getting a reward for going back by massively reducing that revisit score. Now it will creep up over time and hopefully be encouraging it to move out more and more. Hopefully it will find the location that it wants to be in. And that's all really for today. So I will bring this down. And so in about 5 minutes or so, I will be bringing the agents with the progress from the run that we had just ended to show there, and hopefully they will make it into Pewter themselves. So I'll see you all in about 5 minutes. Thank you.